Joining us right now is Joan Meier. She's a professor of clinical law, George Washington University, also the founder of Domestic Violence Legal Empowerment and Appeals Project. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
So, we've been talking about this now. Really, we've been talking about it for months. But seriously, obviously, after this video hit yesterday, we've been talking about it quite a bit. So many people call in and say, I don't understand why she would stay with him and marry him after this. Can you sort of get into that psychology and discuss how this is not uncommon?
I can speculate. What I can tell you that we know in the field and what we see often is that it's not like someone hits someone and then the next thing that happens is she decides to marry him. What happens after an incident like this is that Ray Rice and all of his allies, which probably included, potentially a lot of his fellow players and the league and the team, get together and put a full court press on the victim to make sure that she does not report, that she does not complain, and that she goes ahead and gets married. Because the best thing for Ray Rice is if she marries him, and that in itself, that act kind of minimizes whatever happened and minimizes any blame on him. And batterers don't just attack their victim and then sit back and let their victim choose what to do. They do everything in their power to make sure that nothing bad happens to them as a result of their behavior. And the person who holds the power to make something bad happen is their victim. So, a lot of things, I have no idea what Ray Rice did, but what we often see is a full court press in terms of pressure. We see profound apologies and maybe tears from the abuser. We don't know if Janae had any support from her family or her friends, or if everyone kind of rallied to Ray Rice because he's a celebrity and, being married to Ray Rice was a really cool thing in everyone's eyes and she should just forgive and forget. That's a very common reaction from not only the abuser's support system, but sometimes even the victims. So, she's been traumatized, and then on top of that trauma, there's all this pressure coming in, both benign and not so benign, to forgive and forget and move ahead. I don't know how soon the wedding was after the incident, but if it was going to be very soon, it would have taken even more. It's like turning a ship around to cancel a wedding right before it happens, and, it would take enormous strength and momentum to be able to call it off. So there are a lot of things that could have been going on and probably were.
Very interesting that you say that this is not just something that you would see in the NFL, that this is very traditionally what does happen, that they circle the wagons around the guy and they put pressure on the woman. But there's also this thing called, sort of a victim syndrome. Do you see her as, because she had been a victim, and one can't really know the details of what the relationship was like before this incident, but this may have been something that she felt like she was a victim in that relationship, and therefore she was at fault?
I guess I would distinguish those two concepts, what it feels like to be a victim and what it feels like to be at fault. But yes, I think, she publicly accepted some responsibility for what happened. You've got, even on the most recent TMZ video, you've got comments in there calling it mutual combat, amazingly.
It doesn't seem to be the case, does it?
Well, she spit at him, you see. What often happens in abuse is the victim isn't like lying there passive, although sometimes she is when she gets attacked. There's an argument. She may be pissed. She may be yelling. She may even, slap him or something. She feels in some way involved in what triggered the violence. And so it is, and the violence itself is very shaming. That kind of attack, any kind of physical abuse, is very shaming inherently. It makes you feel like somehow you've done something terribly wrong. And so if you said any words, if you were in an argument, anything, you start to take some responsibility and feel like you were part of the problem. I suspect she has had some of those feelings around this incident, and possibly if there have been others. It is perfectly normal. It's not a measure of her sickness or her disorder. It's human nature to have those feelings in that situation.
Joan Meier, I want to play. We talked about Ray Rice's press conferences, both of them, and analyzed a lot of the things that he said at the time. And I wonder, a lot of what he said angered me, and now in retrospect, it's even worse. I want to play this one thing for you and have you sort of dwell on it a bit. Listen to this.
As me and Janae wish we could take back 30 seconds of our life, we definitely sit here today and tell you that, we are better parents, we are better lovers, and we're also better friends throughout the situation.
I want to play this because if anyone knows someone who's in a situation like this and the man in the relationship are saying things like this, when he says, me and Janae wish we could take back 30 seconds of our life, it's all, we're in this together and we're both responsible, right?
Yeah, that's also very, very classic. And again, she, under probably enormous duress and a lot of trauma, she participated a little bit by making the statement she made. But yeah, that's the classic way that abusers get out from under taking responsibility. It becomes a relationship problem. It's mutual, and we're working on this together.
And going into the NFL and you said that they circled the wagons, they protected him, and listen, they know him, they maybe didn't know her, and their instinct was maybe for cynical reasons to protect him. But what should they or could they have done instead to protect her? How can you get the woman in a place where she feels safe enough to really tell what happened?
It's really important to have available domestic violence advocates who understand the dynamic of abuse to talk to someone who's just been through this kind of trauma. It's really important also never to bring the victim and the abuser into the same room to discuss what happened as though you're going to get an accurate story, because you're not. She's not safe to argue with what he said. She knows what happens when she argues. Right. It's what happened that night. And so all you're doing is empowering him by treating it as something that the two of them can address together. So you need an advocate. The advocate needs to be someone who can build a trusting relationship fairly quickly, and good advocates can if the victim is open to it. And, of course, it depends on if she is. But usually when there's someone who understands the trauma and the dynamic of this kind of abuse and relationship, a victim who feels safe and feels that her words are confidential will open up often, and then the advocate's role is to really talk through how she feels about it, what will help her stay safe. It's also a moving target. It's a process of evolution. Victims don't make snap decisions that are reliable. They may make snap decisions, but it takes a while to come to a better thought-out decision, and one that really weighs different options and thinks through how bad is this option, how decent is the other. And it takes time. You need an ongoing relationship. You need more than one conversation. But you need an advocate, and then, depending on the dynamic of the relationship, with someone in the public eye, my guess is that there's less danger that were she to break it off, that he would come after her and punish her. But another reason she may have married him, and certainly is true in many, many cases, is that they threaten her. Women are most at risk of being killed when they separate from their abuser. The majority of attacks on women by intimate partners happen after separation. So the fact is that a lot of reason women, quote unquote, go back or don't leave is that they're scared out of their minds about what will happen when they do leave.
And very quickly, with our time running down, my question is, a lot of people have said, well, look, he did what he did. We knew that he knocked her out, but why did it change in many people's mind once they saw the video inside the elevator?
Right. I mean, I think that's horrifying. I think we should understand when he's dragging her out unconscious that we should understand that he caused her to be unconscious, and that's all we should need to know. But as an educator, I find it fascinating that seeing is believing, and that simply is, I think, human nature. We don't believe words the way we believe what we see with our own eyes. And the quality of it, the way he kicks her with his foot to try to get her to move, the disgust and the contempt in that gesture, you can't really put that into words, and she couldn't even report that because she wasn't conscious. So,
that's a great point, and thank you for bringing it. Thank you for being with us this morning as well, Joan Meier,
welcome.
professor
Thank
of clinical
for...
law at George Washington University.